percentages are tricky, right?
Super delicate.
Super delicate.
Yeah.
And you can manipulate them.
Yeah.
You can. Percentages only indicate the past.
Explain how you can manipulate them.
Oh, it's like the quality of the shots, the types of shots you're shooting.
This is the 50, 40, 90 guy.
Yeah, well, I just don't think they tell the whole story.
They don't. They do not.
On paper, like they don't. But you, for example, like you're percentage-wise, you're having as efficient of a year as you've ever had, especially with the volume. How like conscious of the percentages are you?
Not very. Especially this year. Right. I feel like I with a lot of attempts comes a lot of random outcomes, comes a lot of games where you might be 2 for 10 and then a game where you can get hot and be 7 for 11, you know? So I don't pay that much attention to them because especially, and it's an acquired thing. Like it's not easy, you know? Yeah. It's like if you feel in a game that you're 1 for 7, like you feel that increased pressure going into the next shot. There is an actual effect of that.
For sure.
And the best don't let it affect them and can approach the next shot with a very clear head. But in general, misses add up in a game, it weighs on you. So there is a process to learning how to clear your head of the past, having that short-term memory. Everybody talks about it. Nobody, really, it's just a lot easier said than done. And so for me personally, I think the overall understanding is that during an 82-game season, I'm going to have a lot of attempts. I'm going to have a lot of attempts. And I'm going to have good days, I'm going to have bad days, I'm going to have good weeks, I'm going to have bad weeks. Just kind of riding the wave and trusting the work. Percentages are tricky. Like I said, they are only an indication of the past. In my opinion, they got nothing to do with what the next shot's going to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all about shot prep. It's all about getting back to the basics, understanding what makes a shot go in and how you can best give yourself the best chance of making that one shot more so than what I did the last 10.
Yeah, it's a great, that idea of just being process driven, because that to me is what shooting really is how committed to the process can you be. The tricky thing with percentages is like I always tell people, all right, I go into a game, I take 6 threes. If I go 2 for 6, 33%, that's not very good. If I go 3 for 6, that's 50%. That's
amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. So what if that one shot hit every part of the rim, everything about the rep was great and just popped out? So you're going to get bent out of shape about that one rep that really should have gone in or could have gone in, or you did everything right. Now you're going to let that dictate the next shot that you take or the next game, or how you even feel about how you played in that game. So I think building JJ would always talk about, if I have a 2 for 12 or whatever, I'm going to have a 6 for 10, right? Like it's always going to come back around. And I think building that trust and resolve that over time, I'm going to be right, around my number, 40%. You kind of build that trust, and that's like true, real confidence. That's what gets you through the moments where start a game 1 for 7, 1 for 6, that you're going to come back to it. And it might not be that game. That might be a 1 for 10. Like it just might be, like even the best shooters. I mean, Steph's had over 10s. Like that's just how it goes. But it's really just about trying to find and build the resolve to push through that and stay process driven.
Yeah. And understand that you've done it before. Understand that you've been through it. We've shot a lot of shots in the NBA. We shot a lot of shots in college, a lot of threes in high school, et cetera. Understanding that it does come back around. And, if he's in the game and he's one for 6, I'm not closing out. Like as a defender, you're like still afraid that the next one's, you know what I mean? It's like, there's that part of it too, is that like you understand that, the respect level that you have of defenses, no matter what your percentage is always going to be very high. And, it's kind of just your own mental thing that can get in the way of being able to move on from mistakes or misses.
When did you feel like you started with the no-dip 3? Where you started to feel very comfortable with it?
In the league is when I really started working on it. I think it really started in the corners. And a lot of my threes early in my career were I call the the area from the baseline to the break as my real estate that I own. This is my land. I purchased real estate here. I'm gonna set up shop, get comfy,
I love it.
and understand that,
There's a lot of money in that corner, man.
The pick and roll's coming. Somebody's gonna help. I'll find me one. I could always do. I had great guards that could pass the ball. So I just kind of was, because when I was younger, I didn't really like corner threes. So when I got to the league, it was like, all right, I'm gonna feel real comfortable with a lot of different shooting angles out of this corner three, and some of them are no dip, some of them are no step ins to them. Some of them are those micro adjustments. Some of them have a little fade to them, but just a lot of reps.
I think it's interesting, like finding places on the floor that you feel the most comfortable in. A lot of that's obviously like being intentional around, like I'm gonna practice this. Like it makes sense that corner threes, obviously in the NBA, how coveted they are, but then also like you realize getting comfortable within a system or how you're playing, where shots generally start to come from. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's who you're playing with, how you're playing stylistically, what the coach is preaching, but then how that can sort of compound of, all right, these are where my shots are coming. I'm going to start working on these and be a little more deliberate about, all right, I'm getting shots on this right wing, or I'm getting shots going to my right. That's like, now I feel more comfortable shooting off the dribble sometimes than I do off the catch. And that's not saying I'm like getting James Harden like step back threes, but like one dribble push dribble or getting run off the line. I got so used to getting run off the line that I really would work that one dribble sidestep to the point where I'm like, damn, I'm like kind of getting away from just like catch and shoot threes. And then like you kind of realize that and you go back into working on that. So it's like you have like seasons and rhythm and flows of like how you're going to approach it and being deliberate with how you're going to approach the development aspect of it.
The most important thing, like you said, though, is understanding which shots you are comfortable with and which shots you're getting in the game and finding the best way to kind of maximize that. So a lot of us shooters will go back and watch. Like for me personally, I'll go back and watch every three I'll take throughout a season, and I'll do that for, I'm in my 6th year now. I could randomly go back one day and pull up all my threes from my 3rd season, all my threes from my 2nd season, make some misses, and just see the trends. All my threes from the last 2 weeks. Make some misses, see the trends. Where am I shooting them from? Where am I getting them from? What I did right on these shots, what I did wrong. And then I also have a thing kind of when I'm shooting, like kind of just like an expected outcome that I'll put towards the shot. Like I could quickly assign. So like when a shot leaves my hand, it's like, okay, 75% confidence. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay, like 80% confidence.
So your number, you'll put a number on it.
Yeah, in my head. And then I'll go back and watch the film. And then I'll say like, okay, it might have been an 80% confident shot. It might have gone out. It might have been a 20% confident shot. It might have gone in. And so that kind of becomes a better barometer for that game performance that, it's the difference between 2 of 7. And, maybe I was 2 for 5. Maybe I was 1 for 3. You know what I mean? It's like, that's 33%. That's 40%. But that 2 of 7, I have 4 of them, 5 of them that felt really good. Right. Like my shot's in a fine place. The ones, where you're slipping, bad misses, you're not, you're not feeling, the ball well and on your release. Those are the ones where I get back to the gym and then I start to sort out what's going on, get back to basics, form shooting, get back to where are the reps. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back, and if I'm 2 for 10 in this game, the 8 threes that I missed, the different scenarios, I might go back and just rep out. One of them was a corner catch and shoot. One of them was a transition. One of them was an away screen. You know what I mean? And just like ease your mind. Like you can make these, you're good, and get back to it.
I like that concept of putting an expected result. Because if we talk about shooting being process driven, then you have to detach from the result to some extent. Like it can't, and obviously we live in like a bottom line business of the NBA, but as much as you can, you have to fight that, because if you really want to be a great shooter, it has to be about the process. Yeah. It has to be about the building blocks, the repetitions, the what goes into, making shots, because shooting is all about consistency. It's doing the same thing or as many repeatable things over and over again. So detaching from the results, I think, is a huge part of that. I have stretches of training in the summer where, the trainer that I work with, where we'll detach from the result. I'll shoot and close my eyes and just like not even see if the ball is going in or not, because it's not about that. It's more so about like, all right, what are you feeling? Because a lot of times you'll make a shot, but it won't be a good rep. And people don't necessarily understand what that means, but it's more about like, all right, am I doing all the things like Kyle Korver would always have a checklist. Like I'd always pick his brain on this. I'm not as maniacal as to where I can have like 12 things, but I always have like 1, 2, or 3 things that I'm really focusing on that usually lead to a good rep.
Would you mind sharing those? Or are they just...
Yeah, no, for sure. So one of them is like base is a huge part of it. So like getting your feet right. I have a certain, especially when I'm moving, I don't prefer to go 1, 2. I like to go like one step into like a little hop. So like making sure I'm hitting that. The other one is actually not my right arm, but my left arm, making sure my offhand is tucked. Sometimes what will happen is I'll get what I call a little disconnected. The ball will kind of get removed from my body and I'll kind of get that 2 motion.
Yeah.
When things start getting a little sideways, that's sort of like an ism that I have. And you know, it's like over time you start to kind of feel, all right, this is when I start missing shots, I start to kind of do this, and you get a little bit more in tune with kind of what's happening. So I think about really kind of tucking my left elbow versus not my right. A lot of people think it's your right. It's actually counterintuitive. I think a lot about my left hand, because when I start to miss, my left hand is getting involved more than it should. So those are 2 that I like really focus on. And the last one is really about my finish, just like making sure I'm snapping and holding, especially with like tight closeouts. I'm not like leaving it, pulling it back, you know, worrying about contact, but instead of like standing on it, like really finishing, you know, the rep and the result. So
yeah.
What about you? You got stuff that you like
Yeah.
think about, process?
Yeah, I think, especially for me, it's a moving target, right? So there's a huge checklist, and there's a lot of things that I could go over. I feel like my mind changes with how I'm feeling, with how things are going, how my body's feeling, whatever. I'd say number 1 is just base and catch. Like how much weight distribution is between my feet when I shoot. I want that 50-50. I want kind of like my center of mass. I want to feel real strong and confident in it. So I want that dip to be in, I think people use this analogy a lot, to be in a telephone booth. So like when you isolate the shot, no matter how much momentum's going in, is my center of mass perfectly in line with the ball, where that I'm going straight up and straight down, because then naturally that just eliminates so much of that random left, right.
Yeah.
And when you have too much of that lean, you have to make up for that left, right with the follow through, with the flick, with the very end of the shot, which is just too much to ask when you're searching for consistency. So basically make everything as consistent as possible through the motion, so that the release is not, it does not have to do too much. So then that's when the muscle memory really takes over. In terms of release point, some days I'll have to go back to kind of finding the seams on the ball. Some days I'll have to go back to, you know, handing the cookie jar. Mm-hmm. On movement shots, I think the base is the big one, and how my feet are putting, you know, force into the ground. So I do this in my warm-ups every game. I'll do 1-footed threes off my left, off my right. And it's all my warm-up and pregame is just a barometer for how I'm feeling that day and what else I need going forward in warm-ups. So all I'm doing is paying attention to where the ball's going. I'm not concerned about makes and misses. I'm not concerned about anything, just about how everything is flowing. So it's like, you know, I'm shooting off my left leg and they keep going flat and to the left, flat and to the left. I need to push through it more to get me back in the center. Same thing with the right. You know what I mean? So I just try to pay attention to a lot of those details just to put myself in the best position possible, where that I feel like when I get into the game, I'm not thinking about those little things. I'm not.
That's the crazy thing, though, because we're talking about all these things that we think about. But then if you touch back on the games where you shoot the ball the best, and I were to ask you, like, what are you thinking about? It's nothing. So it's like, that's the whole trick of, obviously you need all these reps and this muscle memory, but it's really to create within you this idea of like playing mindless.
Is that flow state?
Free.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a shooting flow state. Like there's basketball flow state, but there's a shooting flow state.
Yeah, he talked about that. We talked about that with Steph for sure. He would talk about it a lot. And then even Trey, I talked about Trey the other night when Trey's been going crazy recently. And he's like, once you get into that spot,
you're not thinking.
You don't even know what's going on.
What's my way or what's my finish looking like? Like there's something in you that's taking over. And what it is years and years of repetition and feel and work, and all of that's coming to fruition on a stage where you're not even you're able to do it just unconsciously.
And all we're saying right now is these are the ways that we do our best to put ourselves in that flow state come game time. That's it.